console, online. HPG connection, online. Educational module, online. All systems, nominal.
Hello, class, and welcome to On the Origin of Battlemechs Podcast, episode 31. Today we are talking about the Von Rohrs, also known as the Hebi, which translates to serpent. I am your host, Brent Stewart McKee. My co-hosts today are...
I'm Joshua.
And I'm Chandler.
So the Von Rohrs is the second mech by the Draconis Combine, and with the repeated failures and embarrassments that the Gladiator provided the Draconis Combine, especially with the stunning defeat on Nox, the Van Rohrs family saw an opportunity and took it. They set out to build an entirely new battle mech, but first they had to build an entirely new battle mech construction company, and so Kankyuko MFC was born. The mission statement of the company was to learn from all the mistakes that new Samarkand Armor Works and what they could from the battlefield reports and not repeat them. This with the fact that the Von Rohrs was the first standard tech battle mech for the Draconis Combine meant that it walked off the assembly line and right into waiting units, quickly replacing the now older and derided Gladiator. The unit was produced en masse and was instrumental in the Draconis Combine taking back territory that was lost to House Steiner in 2463. It was well on its way to becoming a standard, or the standard mech of the Draconis Combine when Martin McAllister's rebellion exterminated the Van Rohrs family. To remove all references to the now-gone dynasty, McAllister issued his first declaration after becoming coordinator that the mech be renamed to the Hebi, and that of course translates to serpent, and the now Hebi would be replaced with a different model if destroyed. The factory and company would be shut down and closed. Luckily, the relative peace that the Draconis Combine had after the rebellion allowed for the now renamed Hebi to stay on the battlefield for some time, proving its abilities as a machine of war while it slowly disappeared into obscurity. It is an important note that the mech is little known in the Draconis Combine, and most are not even aware that it exists, but the information was not purged from the history books. It simply was allowed to hide in the back of the archives for dedicated researchers to find. So the first mech we're going to talk about today is the 4RH-5. It has the design quirks of having a bad reputation, and it has a movement profile of 5'8". It has a LRM-10 in the left torso, a PPC in the right arm, and a flamer in the left arm. It has 15 heat sinks, and it is of course all standard tech because we are in that era now. It was first produced in 2487, and this model has a devastating surprise 1-2 punch with the PPC and LRM, and for close range and to dissuade infantry it has the flamer that I mentioned. And this guy also is the second mech from the Draconis Combine, and it, along with the Gladiator, really cements the design aesthetic coming from this successor state. They very much like the mechs they pilot to almost look like a suit of armor, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me it's kind of hard to tell with this mech because the only art we really have is from a weird low angle.
And very much an action pose.
Mm-hmm.
But the little bit we can see of the cockpit, I think, looks very much like a helmet to me. And also the chest is very boxy, slightly triangular, which also reminds me of armor, but that could just be the humanoid form it has.
Yeah,
I definitely think in addition to just aesthetics, I feel like it also starts to solidify the Draconis Combine for being a very PPC missile combination design philosophy. Those who've read the Warrior trilogy, the Panther pops up every 5 seconds, and that's what it does. And a lot of people associate that with the Draconis Combine, is that kind of style.
PPCs all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In speaking of the Panther, this thing does not strike me as much better than a Panther. For all that extra tonnage, you get a one better movement profile. Your SRM-4 goes to an LRM-10 and you add a flamer and a bunch of armor.
Yeah, and not even a ton more armor either.
I'm not impressed by this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this guy also, like the Panther, wants to keep its distance from everything, but it also isn't running around in the trees harassing things. This is more of a, I am moving up with my lance mates and we are taking a position, or you are coming at us and we are defending something.
Yeah, this mech definitely feels like a medium mech trying to be a heavy mech. I mean, it's armored very similarly to a medium mech, and most of that tonnage is just going into the weapon systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you compare it to the Dragon, and this guy is worse in pretty much every way.
This wants to be the Dragon, or maybe they took what worked out of this and made the Dragon from that. There's definitely some connective tissue, but it's loose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more in mission profile than it is in design profile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and stats.
I'm not impressed with this mech at all.
So to give us another perspective, I pulled the image from Iron Wind Metals and threw it up into the chat. And yeah, definitely, like, this looks like a suit of armor to me. It has that almost cylinder helmet style head, but it's also very flat because obviously it's not a human head in there. It's a cockpit, which you can have nestled down into where the neck would be, with those shoulder pads that also come up that you can barely see in the art and source materials. That also very much evokes a suit of armor to me.
Yeah, I can see it.
So this 4RH-5 has a battle value of 1170 and a point value of 32. And the next model we have may or may not have actually happened. The 4RH-6, sometime before the rebellion that wiped out the line mentioned previously. This unit is either an early prototype or a design that was never built, but we have no records of an actual unit being built, so it's likely, in my opinion, it was just a design concept. It trades the LRMs for SRMs and was much anticipated, but of course, the McAllister Rebellion and the Edict stopped it from being developed. In fact, stopped the mech dead.
Yeah, and this H-6 really is just a big panther.
Yes, this is very much a panther, or a panther on steroids, because it's got a movement profile of 5'8". It's got 2 SRM4s, a PPC, and a flamer. It has 16 heat sinks, and it feels like a panther. It feels like a very big, heavy panther.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a little confused where all the tonnage on these mechs are going. Like, maybe I'm just too used to later eras where everything's got endo steel and can carry like 17 guns, but it seems like there's almost like a wrong calculation somewhere.
It does kind of feel off, but they are using standard engines, and it is going 5.8.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
5.8 is, with a standard engine, optimizes at 55 and 60 tons, so this is 5 tons over that, so it's losing about a ton of its potential carry weight due to just the fact that it's 5 tons heavier than, say, a Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a heavy mech, this guy is just so undergunned.
Feels underwhelming. But then again, remember what we're comparing it to. The Gladiator. The Gladiator had blue screen of death.
Yes, but also compare it to the Toro, which we talked about in the last episode, which the final production model, the 6, had a PPC, 2 LRM5s, and a 5.8 movement profile.
And 30 tons less.
And not that much less armor, relatively speaking.
So maybe they just over-engineered it, because if you look at the art, especially in the record sheets, with that action pose, it's got big, meaty mitts on it. It looks like everything is cylindrical, which of course makes production time and costs much more intensive. So this could just be a over-engineered machine.
Which, I mean, would make sense in universe, but it doesn't really explain why it's so lightly armed from game mechanic standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Well, it has a battle value of 1146 and a point value of 34. So weight-wise, it's not really in line with everything, but point value-wise, it does kind of line up more with the 45-50 ton bracket. So clearly it is punching down on its weight class.
For sure.
And an interesting historical note is the last known von Rohrs, or Hebi, was dismantled in 2518.
Rest in peace. Or pieces, I guess.
So for our pilot profiles, I'm going to throw over to Josh.
Today's notable pilot of the von Rohrs is von Rohrs. Colonel Ibis von Rohrs. Her real first name is unknown, lost to history during the purge of the von Rohrs family. She's notable for having taken charge of the second Sword of Light after they got their butts whooped on the planet Nox. She was the first warrior in the second Sword of Light to receive a von Rohrs for fairly obvious reasons, and it's claimed that she was a pure egotist who led from the front of battle, charging headfirst into every fray. Although most of the battles that she fought were not against other mechs, she preferred to pick on vehicles and infantry. Her subordinates managed to shield her from the Steiner counterattacks in Steiner mechs on many occasions. I guess that's the advantage of being the heir of the ruling family.
And a colonel.
Yeah. And she has such a reputation for getting her fellow lance mates shot out of their mechs that if somebody wanted to get out of the DCMS with an honorable discharge, all they had to do was volunteer to be one of her lance mates, and they would eventually be shot out and injured badly enough that they would get an honorable discharge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not the best exit strategy.
Way to do it, I guess.
Her attitude off the battlefield was such that she's often credited for being the source of the Lyran social general concept after she was captured by the Steiners on Galuzzo. So that gives you an idea of what a kind of arrogant, partying, not very competent commander she was.
Explains a lot about what happened to the Von Rohrs.
Yeah, definitely had an ego on her. So, for today's data dive, we are going to look at the early days of House Kurita. And despite a long history, Kurita's history has many gaps, but important notes from before humanity escaped the birth system of Terra indicate that a Kurita was in command of a naval ship during the Second Terran World War. But much more interesting, at least to me, is that House Kurita is connected to Takeyoshi Fushida, one of the two founders of Jump Tech. Records indicate that Catherine Kurita worked with Takeyoshi over many projects, and the two of them fell in love and married. But the story of the Jump Tech founders is a data dive for another day. And so we're going to move forward to when we have more reliable records. After the Terran government withdrew to 30 light years around Terra, almost all colonies were left to fend for themselves. The lucky ones would have some jump-capable ships. The very lucky ones would have many jump-capable cargo ships. For in this era, before the HPG network, all information was transferred by Pony Express, in quotes there. And so for those planets or corporations who had ships, started to set up little fiefdoms of territory and would commonly merge, create alliances, or share profits from a territory as the small were eaten and power established. The notable one of these that we are speaking about today is Ozawa Mercantile Association, for they operated in the northeast quadrant of the inner sphere, and while not crippling, their markups and price gouging bred much resentment among the planets they operated in, including New Samarkand and Galadon 5. The recognized establishment of the Kuritan dynasty is with Shiro Kurita, who was raised on New Samarkand by a strict father who lived according to the 17th century Japanese samurai culture, traditional training and all. Shiro would be supported by his younger brother Urizen, who, while instrumental, was more of a military man than politician. Shiro took an interest in politics at a young age and put his sharp mind to work learning the ins and outs of the political landscape and how to influence it. By age 20, he had cemented control and a power base as Lord of Yamashiro, his home city, and one of several city-states on New Samarkand. But his aspirations were of greater things, and so he called a meeting of all the city-state leaders on the planet. 2 hesitantly accepted, but 3 suspected a trap and so did not appear. The 2 that accepted the meeting also accepted Shiro's plan to unify the planet. It is unknown if the plan is what convinced them, or if it was the compromising information Shiro had gathered about each of them and blackmailed them with. But the result was the same, no matter what. For the 3 that did not accept the invitation were all all found to have died in the night due to covert actions of select individuals in the Yamashiro Guard. Shiro spent the next 2 years establishing New Samarkand under his control, culminating in a complete government and military restructuring and proclaiming himself first citizen in January 2296. The Alliance of Galadon. Immediately after his proclamation, he opened up diplomatic channels with neighboring planets, most notably Galadon 5, a heavy populated planet for the era. After much correspondence, Shiro traveled to Galadon to establish an alliance and meet with the governor and the board in March of 3202. Shiro spoke passionately and for the need to resist the OMA and how their operations exploited not only Galadon but all the systems they operated in, and something must be done about it. One of these things Shiro was doing about it was snapping up ships now that the Exodus of Terra was winding down to build a fleet to compete and outmatch the OMA. Shiro was convincing and flattering, going so far as to insist that the alliance should bear the name of Galadon, and I quote, "That was the only proper name for such a gallant confederation."
He tries so hard.
Galadon agreed, and Shiro set out to other worlds to add members to the alliance. I have no idea how to pronounce the name of this planet, so I am going to butcher this, but I am going to try. Denapor was the next to join, but many remained non-committal. The OMA would not take this affront, and so started a PR and economic campaign to punish the Alliance worlds. The Alliance retaliated in kind, but Shiro privately organized a privateer navy that would fund the Alliance by seizing OMA cargo and ships. That was until November 2303 when Shiro had every known OMA office and facility bombed, even on Alliance worlds. Shiro quickly capitalized on this momentum by having heavily armed troops and air support move on the neutral, in air quotes, planet of Sverdlovsk.
Sounds Russian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks Russian. Starting the first full-scale interstellar military operation that had ever happened in history. While Shiro was being a politician, Origin Kurita had established, trained, and equipped a military force with a level of force projection that would shock all opponents. Again, ships. Jump-capable ships. Though the force stripped New Samarkand of all but the greenest and oldest military personnel, it still mustered approximately 4 divisions totaling in the ballpark of 50,000 personnel. Sverdlovsk fell quickly as it had no militia, and many planets did not, as interstellar invasion was simply not a thing that had ever happened before. Shiro started a propaganda campaign and transmitted it to all neighboring planets. He made several speeches to defeated captive audiences, claiming that this was but one of several armies at his command. A bold bluff that no one ever called, or likely could, as many planets were still in the colonial stage and were focused inwards as opposed to outwards. Shiro then methodically did the same to other worlds, seemingly at random, to grow the Alliance of Galadon. Each planet was required to give a quota of the population to be drafted into the New Samarkand forces, many say indoctrinated. It is noted that Kirai Nar Niwa failed to meet its quota by 20 citizens, and within 3 months more than double the quota had been executed en masse publicly at various points across the planet, organized by Shiro and overseen by Origin. No planet ever missed its quota again. By 2309, Shiro was the Alliance, and the Alliance was Shiro. He dropped all pretenses of advisory and peaceful rule. He personally led battles to establish control and inspired whenever he went, but the planets they had were not enough, so he departed for a year-long tour after securing his power basis and also securing as much intelligence on every planet and person he was going to visit as he could. During this visit, he would manipulate and position himself as a neutral third party, again air quotes, showing evidence of neighbors' aspirations and promising mutual defense, and that his realm was too far away to be any threat, but could come to aid if necessary.
That if you're far enough away to send troops to aid, you're close enough to send troops to conquer.
I agree.
They don't need to know that. That's the fine print.
Yeah. By the end of the year, he returned home with a signed stack of treaties from every nation or planet he visited except one, swelling the membership in the alliance to more than 30 colonized planets, a wedge of space that stretched from the edge of Terran-controlled space to the Draconis Rift, the effective edge of the inner sphere. And that's where we're going to leave off with the Draconis Combine today. A very auspicious and authoritative start.
Authoritarian.
You know, at least they stick to their theme. You got to give them that.
Consistency is important.
Yes.
Once bad guys, always bad guys.
Badgies.
Our sources for today are Sarna, Battletech Battlemech Manual, Master Unit List, TRO 3075, Record Sheets 3075 Unabridged, and House Kurita Sourcebook. We are supported by our Patreons at patreon.com/on the Origin of Battlemechs. Our social media on Twitter is at Origin of Mechs. We also have a dedicated channel on the Everything Battletech Discord. Feel free to stop by and say hi. If you have any questions, requests for topics, or wish to contact us, our email is ontheoriginofbattlemechs@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, I encourage you to let your friends know about us and to leave a review. Special thanks to my friend Laura for the intro and outro. Class dismissed. Everybody have a great day.
Peace out, Mech Warriors.
Stay safe out there.
Module complete. System standby. Would you like to load the next module?
I do like all the like traditional style artwork for the Kurita family, though. It's actually it's a nice change.